The workshop on African modernism in photography and architecture is part of a bigger project on African modernist architecture. And we in Kampala, we get to host the exhibition African Modernism, curated by German architect Manuel Herz.
The project African Modernism takes place, let's say, on several layers. On the one hand, and quite literally, it's a documentation project where we document the architecture from the 1960s and 70s on the African continent.
The African Modernism Kampala workshop has been a really great experience. We explored the relationship between architecture and photography, and we found that it was quite an interesting relationship. What we chose to do was have a photography student paired with an architecture student and go to look at a selected building and see what comes out of that collaboration.
Putting those two more or less traditionally separate practices, semi-separate sort of disciplines together in a workshop and to make collaborations, I think was really a great way to think about photography.
It's been extremely informative. It's been extremely experimental, and those are the kind of things I like. James, our photographer, and Doreen, the architect, how they worked well together gave us an opportunity to figure out how to work together as well as photographer and architect. So watching them from a distance, that was a cool thing to learn all throughout the workshop.
Before, I used to believe that photography is only about taking pictures, but after meeting my fellow friend today, I realized that photography is much more than that. It's about telling a story about the building. It's about telling a story between the people and the building. And he actually did that, and I was really surprised when he did so. But then, it's all about learning at the end of the day.
I also do a bit of photography, but I put the architecture view to it. I understand photography as a way of showing the stages of construction, showing the details in the structure.
Whereas the photographer is more interested in the scene, about the building, the architect may be interested in the moment in the scene. So that combination was really good.
You find most people look at these buildings as very recent, and there's nothing special to them, but I think this workshop gives us the opportunity to uncover the hidden stories behind these buildings.
Generally, we've seen several buildings that were fantastic. I've seen the coffee board building with its colorful facade that is so playful and wonderful. We've seen the student housing at the university, which is quite amazing, and several others. Like the Uganda house in its strict precision, which really has a very high quality.
The most interesting part of the workshop for me was the conversation that we had with architect Philip Cutton, who is part of an old British firm that did most of the buildings during the independence time, and hearing his story about the decisions behind the materials chosen, the form that was chosen, what was happening at that time. I'm hoping that we can record all this information before it gets lost completely.
And we also hope that it's going to be shown again in Kampala or other cities in Uganda to reach a wide audience, as many people as possible.